Hello, my name is Caitlin, and this is my body image disorder presentation for Interdisciplinary Studies 321. I couldn't figure out how to get my video to link up to my PowerPoint, so you'll kind of just have to follow along as I go. I will indicate what slide I'm on, so it should be pretty easy for you. Jumping right in, if you skip past my first slide, you'll see my body image disorders, what they are and what they do. This slide kind of just gives you a brief definition of everything that body image disorders are. They are sometimes referred to as negative body image or body dysmorphic disorder. They refer to an unrealistic view that someone might have of themselves or that someone might have of their body. It is something that starts to form when we're a child and it carries on with us into adulthood, and it's affected by things like our parents, our family, media, stuff like that. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see a link to my first video. This is an interview with Dr. Ben Buchanan, who is a specialist in body image disorders. He kind of gives a brief definition and description of what body image disorders are, and he also discusses a study that he did in regards to this topic, which is pretty cool to listen to. If you have time, I definitely recommend listening to his interview. He's a pretty cool guy. If you go to the second slide, it's titled Signs and Symptoms of Body Image Disorders. Some of the signs that you might see with body image disorders are things like fearing social situations because they're self-conscious about something like a big nose or a little bit of extra weight. They might be wearing excessive makeup or excessive clothing to disguise the thing that they're self-conscious about. Or they might excessively groom themselves. They might fix their hair, fix their makeup, fix their clothes because they want to disguise that thing that they're afraid of other people noticing. Cameras and videos and stuff are these types of people's worst nightmare. They don't want that thing that they're self-conscious about documented on a camera, so they will cover their faces with their hands or push a camera out of the way, stuff like that. Going on to the next slide, it's body image disorder and its prevalence. I kind of only covered body image disorder in America rather than some of the other countries in this slide. I wanted to put my focus on just that. So you'll see a few statistics on here in regards to women in America, how they're affected by anorexia, bulimia, stuff like that. 2.8% of Americans suffer from binge eating disorders. 30 million people of all ages and genders suffer from an eating disorder, usually caused by a body image disorder. It's so incredibly common in America because we're so affected by media and stuff like that. We see pictures of beautiful people and we want to look like those beautiful people. So that's kind of just a brief description of how much body image takes effect on stuff like eating disorders in America. The next slide is titled Media, Peers, and Parents. This is the first of 3 slides in regards to how media, peers, and parents affect our body image. On the media aspect, like I said a second ago, we're vastly affected by things like TV, internet, Instagram, Facebook, magazines. We're constantly surrounded by pictures of what we should look like and what we should dress like. So media obviously has a huge impact on how we view ourselves and how we view our body image. There's a statistic on here that says over 80% of Americans watch TV daily, and on average, these people watch over 3 hours of TV. Now think about how many commercials take place in that 3 hours, and how many shows that depict gorgeous, beautiful women. It's just constantly being piped into our brains that we need to look like these types of people, and sometimes that's obviously not realistically possible. People on TV, magazines, Facebook are altered digitally, and it's not physically possible sometimes. And if we don't look like those people in media, we obviously start to feel pretty crappy about ourselves. If you go on to the second slide, it's the peers aspect of media, peers, and parents. Peers, recent studies have shown that peers actually have a bigger impact on our body image than even media and parents do. We obviously want to look good for the people that we surround ourselves with. You can't really decide who your parents are, and media is kind of always forced upon us, but your peers are the people you choose to surround yourselves with. So when they say something about how you look, or if they start to talk about something that displeases them with how they look, this obviously rubs off on you. If your friend is saying something like, oh, my butt is too big, I need to lose weight, or oh, I need to bulk up, I'm not strong enough, you're going to start thinking things like, oh, maybe I need to lose weight, or maybe I need to start bulking up. Maybe I don't look good enough. If they don't think they look good enough, what makes me think I look good enough? So peers obviously have a huge impact on what we think of ourselves as well. This obviously affects people in middle school and high school a little bit more than it does people who are graduated from school. Our next slide is the parents aspect of media, peers, and parents. Parents sometimes don't realize the effect that they have on their children. I read a book from one of our annotated bibliographies. You'll see it on one of the bullet points on this slide, written by Erica Rivera. It's called Insatiable. She was a mother struggling with anorexia, and she was raising her daughters. And she slowly started to notice that her daughters started to display symptoms of anorexia, and she immediately realized that she needed to stop what she was doing because her actions were affecting her daughters, and she knew what she was doing was unhealthy, and she didn't want them to be unhealthy like her. So that book was just kind of a good example of how much a parent teaches their children, like not even realizing that they're teaching their children this. If a parent is constantly talking about, oh, I need to be skinnier, oh, I don't look good enough, it's going to wear off on their children, and their children are going to start thinking similar thoughts as they get older. I knew as a child I was constantly worried about being fat, and that was most likely because my mother was constantly worrying about being fat. I put a statistic on this slide that says nearly 80% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being overweight, and that's obviously something that would be brought on by a mixture of media and parents. So, yeah, that is the parents aspect of media, peers, and parents. Our next slide is culture and how it affects body image. It obviously varies from culture to culture. Some cultures, individuals will have positive body images, while others will have negative. Here in America, it's generally a negative outlook on body image, simply because of how our culture and how our media is set up. Some cultures focus more on what a person can do rather than what they look like. And people in that culture usually find themselves a little bit more satisfied with themselves. The bottom bullet point on this slide, you'll see an example. African American women and Hispanic women generally find themselves more pleased with their body image, whereas white women, Caucasian women, and Asian women find themselves more prone to body image disorders because of their culture, pretty much. Culture has a huge effect on whether or not we like what we see in the mirror. The next slide on here talks about the 7 aspects of wellness that we discussed in the beginning of our quarter. I kind of used that web that we created to just recreate these slides. Physically, body image disorder will prevent a person from getting out and getting exercise because they're afraid that people that they're exercising around will notice what they're self-conscious about. Socially, kind of the same situation. They'll avoid social situations because they don't want the people in those situations to notice what they're self-conscious about. Emotionally, it's obviously going to wear a person down if they're constantly sad and depressed about how they look. They're going to be worn down over time. It's not something that you constantly want to feel. Environmentally, somebody who is more focused on their appearance is going to be less focused on their surroundings. If somebody is taking good care of their body and taking good care of their body image, they're obviously going to want to take a little bit better care of the things that surround them and their environment. Going on to the next slide is the last 3 aspects of our wellness. Spiritually, if a person is more focused on their body image, they're not going to be of a peaceful, sound mind. They're not going to be able to focus on their spirituality because they're more focused on how they look. They can't focus on, I don't want to sound cheesy, but they're not as focused on their inner self, pretty much. So they can't obtain a good level of spirituality. Intellectually, people with body image disorders are not going to want to pursue knowledge or learn new things. Sometimes learning new things means putting yourself in new situations, and sometimes those new situations have new people, and it kind of gets you back in that social anxiety bracket where you're afraid that new people are going to notice things about you that you don't want them to notice. Intellectually, if you're more focused on how you look, you also aren't going to be too focused on learning new things. Occupationally, being self-conscious about things will prevent you from stepping up and trying to get that promotion, or stepping up and, sorry about that, guys, stepping up and trying to get that promotion, or stepping up and getting that recognition that you deserve for doing a good job. Stuff like that. They won't want, people with body image disorders won't want to pursue success in their occupation because they're more focused on how they look, and they're more focused on their self-consciousness. They don't want people to notice them, so they rather kind of just hide in the background. Going on to our next slide, wrapping it up a little bit. Some ways to prevent body image disorder are doing things like kind of getting a healthier mindset about yourself as a whole, convincing yourself that you are good the way that you are, that you really don't need to worry so much about how you look. Convincing yourself that you're perfect the way you are can obviously help vastly, and sometimes that's way more difficult than it sounds. I understand. I've gone through it before. Another way to kind of try to prevent body image disorder is by getting out and exercising. Getting out and exercising can help the way that you feel about your body so much. I know I've done it before. I feel so much better about how I look after a yoga class or after a bar class. I feel a lot prettier. I feel a lot more fit. And just, even if I'm not more fit, I feel that way, and that's all that really matters in the end. Another way to prevent it is by talking about how you feel with someone. Sometimes it's good to relate to someone about what you're feeling. Pretty much everybody has at some point felt self-conscious about how they look. So pretty much talking to anybody will help you get some of those emotions out that you're feeling about your self-consciousness and your body image disorder, and relating to somebody can really help with that. So those are just a few of the preventions of body image disorders. This slide is just kind of a brief covering of that. The next slide is treatment of body image disorder. I'm actually taking a cognitive psychology class right now, and it is, or sorry, not cognitive psychology, behavioral neuroscience, and we are covering treatments of stuff like this. So one great way to treat disorders like this is a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and antidepressant medications. Sometimes SSRIs work, or they're also known as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. A combination of these can pretty much kick a lot of stuff in the butt, really. Lots of different types of disorders, and it's been proven pretty successful with body image disorders as well. If a person really doesn't want to seek out the help of a mental health professional, they can try some of the previous prevention methods that I discussed. They can do things like get exercise, or maybe join a support group. Really talking with people can help things like this so much. And really, I stress that exercise aspect of it. Exercise will really help with stuff like body image disorders. And that is about it for treatment of body image disorders. If you go to the next slide, you'll see my citations page. That is just a brief page for you to check out everything I cited. If you want to go find some of the areas that I found my information, a lot of these articles were super interesting in relation to body image disorders. And that is it for my presentation. I hope you liked it. I know I certainly enjoyed it, and I enjoyed taking this class, and I hope you guys did too. Thanks for watching.